Hey guys, what's up? It's Claire and welcome to my channel. This video, Does God Exist? Transcendentals, is part of a 3-question series. The first of which is, does God exist? The second is, what does observation tell us about God? And the third is, has God revealed himself to us? So this video on Transcendentals is one of 4 under Does God Exist? And each one of these videos displays a different topic of my opinion of why God exists. So let's get started. So starting off, what are the transcendentals? Transcendentals are things that we know exist, but we have no idea why. These transcendentals are beauty, truth, and goodness. Beauty, truth, and goodness are beyond human explanation, but not beyond human experience. The key question here is, why do they exist? So let's talk about the first one, beauty. Examples of beauty are all around us, especially in nature. For some reason, nature exhibits beauty. Good examples of beauty in nature are animals, butterflies, birds. The Grand Canyon is beautiful, the Swiss Alps, the Rocky Mountains, hot springs. Nature has beautiful composition, but there's really no reason for it to be that way. Why, when we're looking at a landscape or a painter's painting a landscape, does nature exhibit beauty? But moreover, why does beauty exist at all? Painters and musicians like Picasso and Beyonce make their living off of beauty of music, beauty of visual arts. But how come humans have come to be able to recognize beauty? The perception of beauty and the capacity to recognize beauty is completely irrelevant to our survival. It's completely irrelevant, if you think about it, to humans at all. But beauty is something that we experience and we see every day and we get to enjoy every day. And for some of us, I would even say that it drives our life purpose. So this is why many famous philosophers have called beauty something that is a transcendental, because it's inexplicable why we have come to be able to observe and experience it. The second transcendental is good, and just talking a little bit about how good is present in our daily lives and how we experience it. For example, we know that there is good and evil, and this affects us in a very real way. When we honor veterans, we do that because we know that it's good and it's just. When we adopt orphans, we do that because it's good. We admire heroes. We admire people who are virtuous, who are courageous, who are honest, who are brave. Oppositely, when we think about what Hitler did, when we think about segregation, or when somebody steals from us or somebody cheats on us, that's our experience of the bad. But more than experiencing good and bad, good and evil are things that influence our decisions. Good and evil are why we have the study of ethics. We want our prime ministers and presidents to be accountable and to be honest, to do their best to serve society. But the question here is, why does it matter at all? Like, why does it matter what's right and what's wrong? Why do we as humans want justice to be served? It's irrelevant to our survival as a species, and at what point in time did humans come to know what is right and wrong? If we were like animals, we wouldn't need justice. We would only want to survive. But why is it that justice exists? Why is it that you and me seek justice for ourselves and for society? Why do we even have expectations of how our leaders should act. Why is it not sufficient to say survival of the fittest or every man for himself? Why have humans come to understand what's right and what's wrong? How have humans come to truly love each other and be able to sacrifice themselves for another? In nature, I would say that animals seek to outperform and outdo one another with any means possible to survive and to reproduce. So at what point did humans begin to develop consciences and to feel guilt, to know when we've done something wrong or done something bad, and not even to the point of physically hurting somebody, but insulting someone, hurting their feelings, knowing the difference between right and wrong? Why is it that human morality exists at all? Is it necessary to our survival? I think that some people would respond to this and say that morality came to be in humans for the betterment of human survival as a species, but I think that if humans wanted to survive at all costs, we could do so without caring about insulting one another, wronging one another, just working together so that each of us would survive. But I think that this is actually contrary to how nature works. When members of a species develop a new characteristic, it's to outsurvive or be superior to other members of its species. However, becoming more empathetic, knowing the difference between right and wrong, feeling guilt actually makes it harder to survive if you think about it. In nature, there are examples of a mother caring for her young and examples of wolves sharing a spoil. But for what reason have humans developed a sense of justice to the point that we make lifelong careers out of it? We have lawyers who interpret and study thousands and thousands of laws. And even then, we don't feel like it's a perfectly just world. We still see small imperfections in the way that we treat each other in our own virtue. And how is it that we've developed a sense of right and wrong, good and evil? If we've never experienced the supreme good and justice, how do we know that we're lacking something? No one can reasonably explain why conscience, right and wrong, is a factor in an experience of our daily lives, like our judicial systems, our laws, our sense of fairness. Why does that exist at all? Like, how has that come to be a part of our human nature? And the last transcendental is truth. Truth reveals to us what is reality. As well, all truths must be in accordance with one another, because reality is in accordance with one another. So for example, if two things ultimately contradict, then one of them must be false because they're contrary to one another. So they both can't be true. But the question here is, how does truth relate to human nature, and why is it unexplainable? If you take a film like The Matrix, we know that it's fiction. When we think about Harry Potter, we know that this is a fictional world. Us as humans have developed the capacity of knowing the truth and knowing falsehoods. We also have the capacity of imagination, so to think about things that are not real or not possible, like Harry Potter, like any fiction novel or mystical stories. Another thing about truth is that we care to obtain knowledge. We've developed space programs and telescopes and so many things to tell us about our universe and our world around us. We're curious about these things. We're curious about how the earth formed. We're curious about how hot our sun is, how far away our sun is. But why do we have this curiosity, and why do we have this ability to understand truth and to understand falsehoods at all? At what point did humans begin to have this capacity? And what is it destined for? What is it purpose for? Why does it exist? Although it most likely won't affect our survival in any way. We're not learning about space to discover threats against us or threats to our survival. We're doing it more so for knowledge's sake and out of curiosity. And because we love space, we're curious and we want to know more about the universe. We want knowledge about the universe. We send a telescope hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from Earth to continue taking pictures and sending them back to us because we seek that knowledge. We seek to know more about reality, and we're enthralled by things that are fiction as well. But I feel the key question here is, at what point did humans begin to have this capacity, and what is this capacity of ours in our human nature destined for? What purpose does it serve, and why does it exist at all? This is why it's called a transcendental. This is why it escapes human reason and human explanation. Truth is something that mystifies me about human nature. If you're not convinced, what would humans be like if we couldn't perceive beauty? We couldn't perceive the beauty in nature or in music. What if, as humans, we acted without caring what was right and what was wrong? What if we didn't even know what right and wrong meant? What if, as humans, we had no imagination? What if we had no capacity to understand what was true and what was false? What was real and what was fake? We had no capacity to imagine things that we knew were not possible or that we had never perceived before. An example of things that we have never come to perceive but we have imagined before are superpowers or alternate dimensions or anything that we've thought about but we've never experienced before. I would even say that these things, beauty, truth, and goodness, are things that we don't understand why they exist in our own human nature, but they are the things that drive us. Beauty is something that in life drives us because it makes life vibrant. Music, art, visiting Rainbow Mountain, visiting Italy, listening to music, going to concerts, it's something that makes life vibrant and drives us. Goodness, so morality, justice, and love are things that definitely drive us in life. A lot of the things that we're motivated to do, we do it out of love. And truth. So people are constantly searching for the truth. People are seeking to learn more about space, to learn more about science, to learn more about logic, philosophy, to find out what's the truth. In Louis Carr's fiction novel, The Card Turner, there's a chapter called Captain and the Radio. This chapter is about a great uncle talking to his great nephew. His great nephew is trying to make conversation. So he asks, "Do you go to church?" And he says no. And he asks, "Do you believe in God?" And the great uncle laughs. Then he continues and he says, "I figure I'm a lot like Captain in the Radio." Captain is his dog listening to the radio. The great uncle says, "So Captain is listening to the radio, and do you figure that he understands the words coming out of the radio?" The nephew says, "No." The great uncle goes on and says, "Do you think that my dog even knew that the sounds coming from the radio were words meant to portray a message?" His nephew says no. And the uncle says the dog was oblivious. Not only did he not understand the message coming from the radio, he did not even know that there was a message to understand. He says that dogs, like every other animal, have evolved to function in their limited world. Lastly, he says, there may be a reality to which we are completely oblivious. And if we somehow did have the capacity to perceive this reality, we don't know if we would be able to comprehend what we perceived. I feel like this story is highly relevant to Transcendentals and what we've been talking about, because what we know that we can perceive, what we know is part of human nature and part of what drives us. What is the meaning behind it? Why do these things exist? Do these things tell us about a greater reality that we're not perceiving? In our human nature, we don't find ourselves dedicating every single second of our lives to survival or reproduction. We find ourselves driven by goodness, love, beauty, and truth in the form of justice, knowledge, and art and music, even though these might not be the only things that drive us. It's unexplainable how humans have developed the capacity to understand each of these things. And why do these things drive us? Our perception and our desires tell us about ourselves. And our desire for ultimate love, ultimate justice, ultimate truth, and beauty tell us about human nature. We will never be fully satisfied until we obtain these things. I'm aware that Transcendentals do not bring about a proof that God exists. But for me, these things bring about aspects of human nature that are unexplainable. We don't know why these things exist. For me, our human desire for perfect love, perfect justice, perfect beauty, and perfect truth reveals to us our own desire for God. William Paley said that a watch is only useful to those who understand time. The beauty of nature is only useful to those who can perceive it. And why does it exist in nature at all for humans to perceive? Beauty, truth, and goodness are things that we perceive that make us, at the very least, aware of a greater reality of which we do not understand. Just like the story in Captain and the Radio. I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are on why beauty, truth, and goodness are part of human nature. So make sure to let me know down in the comments, and thank you for watching.